Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. I'm Anthony Giuliano, and my guest this week is Kourtney Teegardin. Kourtney, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us. You just started a new job not too long ago.
I did. I started at the Hagerman Group in October, and I am the first to hold a full-time marketing position for them in their Fort Wayne office.
Okay, so what's it like in a new position that didn't exist before? What's great about that, and what is challenging about that?
What's great about it is I'm the first to do it, so there's no precedent set, right?
Yeah.
So I suppose there's room for me to kind of learn as I go.
Sure.
What's been challenging is it's a 114-year-old company.
Yeah.
So the people who have been marketing have been doing it for a while and have a lot of ideas that may or may not align with mine.
Yeah,
so from
sure.
a creative standpoint, that's been a bit of a challenge.
Sure.
But I think now we're in a good groove.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of a challenge at first. I was a little more intimidated than I expected I would be arriving in a new position with a lot of people who had been there for years.
Sure. Well, you don't want to break anything after it's been around for 114 years, but you also want to they hired you for a fresh perspective.
Sure.
You want to use that. So didn't Hagerman used to have, like, a long time ago, a longer name that was very German? Am I correct on this?
I don't know when it went away, but I know that in the early 1900s, it was Bushing Hagerman and Company.
All right. Okay.
But I'm not sure when they just became the Hagerman Group.
Okay. Well, it is much better to market just Hagerman than a long German name that no one can pronounce. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about how you got to where you are today, career path-wise. Did you grow up in Northeast Indiana, or did you grow up somewhere else?
I grew up here. Yep.
And
I grew up in Fort Wayne.
Went to IU?
I went to IU in Bloomington.
Okay. So what were you thinking career-wise when you were headed to college? Where did you think you were going, and did you stay on that path, or did you divert from that path?
Okay. So in high school, I worked on both the newspaper and the yearbook and fell in love with journalism. Mm-hmm. I was always, a nerd for writing and grammar and editing. So I knew I wanted to do something with that. And a lot of people were like, don't major in English. What are you going to do with that? Yeah. Well, so I majored in journalism. Yeah. Well, print journalism's kind of dying.
Yeah.
So maybe didn't pick a great time.
Well, I picked English
to go for that.
So
well,
you were one step ahead
you're
of
in
me.
good company.
Yeah.
So I, in college, they pushed us very much on like reporting, and I really wasn't into that. I had some, I don't know if ethical is the right word, but I had some ethical discrepancies with reporting. I remember taking one class and they used the example, if you were sent to write a story on a house fire, mm-hmm. and the mother is outside and her children have died inside, do you approach her and interview her? And I said, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. She's grieving. That's gross. Why would you do that? And the teacher firmly said, yeah, you do. You go get that raw story. And a lot of the kids in the class agreed. And I was like, reporting is not for me. Yeah. This is not right.
Yeah.
And so knew that wasn't for me, mm-hmm. but still loved all the editing and writing. So in my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to work for a magazine. I'm going to edit stories. Mm-hmm. And also in my head, that meant big city, probably big salary.
Oh, yeah.
All false.
Yeah.
Big salary, wrong.
Yeah.
So I did just blindly apply to some jobs like that my senior year with like no experience. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what I was thinking. I don't feel like they prepare you properly in college for expectations of what's next. Yeah. But none of those things happened.
Yeah, I finished college and I moved to Indiana, and I was like, Northeast Indiana, don't you desperately need English majors with no work experience?
Exactly.
The answer was no. So yeah, I feel you there, yeah.
I definitely think, and maybe it's different now, I graduated in 2005, but I don't think college guidance counselors set you up for the proper expectations. Mm-hmm. You're told, well, at least we were told our whole life, and now I think some of that's changing. But you're told your whole life, you got to go to college to get a good job. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of students, at least like I said, when I was there, there's this expectation like employers are going to be knocking down the door to find you. Mm-hmm. That's just not true.
Yeah.
So graduated college with my journalism degree and got a job at Starbucks for 5 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, that's not what I thought was going to happen. I thought temporary. I'll be here very temporarily. I was off my parents' insurance, but I was living at home and I needed health insurance, which is why I went there.
Yeah.
But then ended up staying there for 5 years and learned a ton as far as obviously not brewing coffee, but they have a huge they have a very black and white rule book and training on just being a good manager, being a good leader, being a good team member.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the values I learned from that job I've taken with me everywhere.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So even though very unexpected, did not think I'd be there for 5 years, I think it has benefited me in many ways.
Yeah.
And then from there, got into nonprofit grant writing, which then translated to helping to write proposals for architects, which now translated to writing proposals for construction.
Okay, so
that's the very long beginning to jump where we are now.
So how do you get the first opportunity to do the nonprofit grant writing? Because somebody had to give you a shot, right? And
Absolutely.
how'd that happen?
And so a friend of mine, Katie Silliman, she took a chance on me, essentially. Mm-hmm. She knew I could write. Yeah. She knew I was, had a degree, but was working these retail jobs. Yeah. And she said, do you want to come write grants? Mm-hmm. Was for the regional partnership. Yep. So this was 2014. Yeah. So there's a gap from Starbucks to then that I worked at a prosthetics office in the office. Sure. But that didn't, none of the skills from there are what I'm doing now. So I'll just skip all that.
Sure. Well, sometimes you have those things that are just a job.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of those.
Exactly. Yeah. So Katie was like, I want to offer you this. Is it something you're willing to learn? I know you can be taught. I know I know you're smart. I know you can, learn this. And I thought I had no knowledge of fundraising. Mm-hmm. I had no knowledge of grant writing. Yeah. But of course, I knew how to write. I knew how to follow directions. I know how to get things done by a deadline. Yeah. So,
all skills that you learned, honestly, in journalism school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she taught me the basics, and I rolled with it. I was there for 2 years. I loved it. I loved the team there. I loved the projects I worked on. And then from there, I worked for Scan for just a year. Mm-hmm. That just wasn't the right fit for me, but I did grants and communication for them. Yep. And then went to Design Collaborative to work for architects.
And you were there for a couple of years, Design Collaborative?
I was there for almost 3 years. Yes.
Okay. All right. My son is there right now as an intern.
I saw that.
Yeah. So so where do you go from Design Collaborative, and why do you make that switch at that point?
After I left Design Collaborative? Yeah. Well, unfortunately, in 2019, they had not gotten a lot of projects that they'd expected to get.
Got it. Yeah.
So they experienced layoffs. So they let 7 of us go that summer.
Okay.
I think they're in good shape now. I see that they're hiring. But at that time, 7 of us were let go. So I had a 2-month gap where I wasn't working and was trying to figure out what was next. Sure. And actually someone from DC is who called me and said, hey, I think Rothberg is looking for someone.
Okay. So Rothberg, a law firm. All right. And you're there doing marketing stuff?
Yes. So I was hired to do business development and marketing for them. Yep. So went there in October of 2019. And their biggest project that was on the agenda for hiring me was a rebrand.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. Okay. Because branding law firms is really difficult. Yes. I don't know if you heard of this person when you were in the law firm world, but his name is Ross Fishman. Mm-hmm. He's like the guy for marketing law firms. And he has, I don't know if it still exists, but he used to have a website that you could build your law firm's website. And it was a joke, but it was like, put the columns here, put the handshake here, put the wing tips here. Talk about how you're old, talk about how you're smart, talk about how you do everything. And it was like, yeah, that looks like a lot of law firms branding. So how did you go about that to make it differentiated? What did you do knowing that there's a lot you can't do in the law firm marketing world?
Sure. Well, first of all, I imagine on his build your own website that there were columns, because I feel like every law firm has columns somewhere. Yeah. What Rothberg wanted to do, so a lot of their partners are to the point where they're going to start retiring.
Mm-hmm.
And then their newer partners are in their late 30s, early 40s to, early 50s.
Yep.
And they, they'll continue it
Sure.
on. And they said, well, who do we want to be?
Yeah.
We want to be a little more contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be a stuffy law firm.
Yeah.
So I worked with the COO and we interviewed several marketing agencies and went with the one that we felt pitched us as what can we do for you versus look at all these other things we've done for everyone else.
Yeah.
So that was for me with a marketing brain. I was like, yeah, they got it. They understand. So we went with them and went through several versions of kind of a brand refresh at first. And then I convinced them, like, you need a full rebrand. Like, if you really want to do this right and you don't want to do this again in 5 years, we got to just go all the way in. So we did. And in the end, I think the logo they got and the colors and the, just all the branding really sets them up for many years. And definitely gives them a much different look and feel than what they had before. It's nothing. It's nothing super modern or super. It's not bleeding edge.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's at least kind of approaching the edge for law firm branding.
Sure. Well, I don't think there is a bleeding edge in the law firm world. No offense to my law firm friends, but it is
they want there to be. I'm just not sure where that is.
Well, and I will tell you that the logo today is recognizable to me. The blue and red with the accent on the W, I think on the
There's a like a line through the R and then the W has that same direction.
Yeah, and I can't tell you what the logo used to be. So congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Focus group of one says that it's working.
Thank you.
So how long was that process?
Oh, well, so we started in February of 2020.
Yeah.
You can guess how that went.
Yeah, sure.
So then the original scope was, okay, we're going to get going in March. Once we'd come up with, what we wanted in February, we'll get going in March. We'll do a workshop with all the partners and we'll have this wrapped up by June. And so that was when it was going to be a brand refresh.
Sure.
Then once we got started and we decided, okay, full rebrand, then I think the goal was that fall. But then the pandemic sent everyone home for not just Rothberg, but also for the marketing agency. So it was just kind of all over the place, us trying to figure out what the timeline was going to be. It ended up launching in February of 21. So start to finish with several interruptions and hiccups because of the pandemic was 1 year.
Yeah, that's actually not bad.
No.
Especially considering the barriers you're up against.
Yeah.
So
there were a lot of starts and stops and cancellations and rescheduling.
Sure. So you're at Rothberg for how long then total?
Just under 2 years.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about where you went. And I think I know the answer to that question. But why did you choose to go to the job you're in now?
So I chose to go to Hagerman because I wanted to be challenged a little more. There's nothing wrong with law firm marketing, but you can't be as creative. There are a lot of ethical parameters
heavily
around
regulated.
What you can and can't say.
Can't say you're the best.
Nope.
You can't say...
You can only say you're the best if you win an award that says you're the best.
Yes.
You can't say we're the best for real estate law just because you think you are.
Yeah.
You have to say proven by such and such board for this year.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I did it. It was an industry I never thought I would work in. But I really loved the staff. I loved the people there. And I could probably say that rebrand is maybe the project I'm proudest of because I was a marketing team of one.
Yeah.
And a rebrand is not a small task.
Yeah.
And of course I worked with, a marketing firm, but doing all the things on Rothberg's end came from me.
Yeah.
Marketing team of one. So I'm really proud of it. But it was when I saw the position with Hagerman and I knew it was a new position and I knew they were a very well-established company. A previous guest you've had on, Stephanie Veit, had worked there. So I reached out to her and said, do you think this is a culture I would like? Do you think that this is a boss I would like, because her position when she was at Hagerman was the same boss I have. So I talked to her, and then I decided to apply, and they called me the same day and interviewed me pretty quickly after that. So it was hard to say goodbye to Rothberg, but they do have a relationship with Hagerman. It was... Well, everyone was happy when I left in the end.
Yeah, it's Fort Wayne. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us what Hagerman is to people who might not be familiar with it. I could get out of my depth pretty quickly myself, but I at least know it's a construction company. So
yes.
Tell us more than that. What does Hagerman do?
So they are a commercial construction company. They also do a lot of self-perform work. So they do concrete, masonry, and carpentry. You
said self-perform work. What
yes.
does that mean?
So that means that if you hire a construction company, you might have to hire 3 other businesses.
So subcontractors.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
But we offer those services.
They actually do
one.
the stuff that they say they're going to do. Okay,
yes.
Great. All right.
So it makes it a little easier on the client if they go with us because, hey, we can self-perform all these other things that are within the scope of your work.
Got it. Okay.
So some of the big projects in recent past would be Promenade Park. They did all of the Riverfront Phase 1 construction.
Okay.
We're currently out at Homestead High School doing additions and renovations there. That's going to be going on for quite a while. We are building the Fort Financial branch at Maple Crest and St. Joe that's just getting started, and the Fort Financial headquarters at Wallen and Lima.
Okay.
Steel's already up there, so that one's moving along.
So that's what's going on at Maple Crest.
Yeah.
Okay, so that used to be like Willie's Restaurant?
Yep.
Okay.
Willie's is no more. Okay. It's going to be Fort Financial.
All right, okay.
There should be a fence wrap on there.
There is. There is a fence, yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a trailer there that says Hagerman, but it should say soon like what the project is.
Okay, all right. Well, a friend of mine was lamenting the loss of Willie's. That's the only reason.
But didn't they move?
They did.
Okay,
yeah.
So they're still around. They're just not where they were.
Yeah, it's a story that will have a happy ending once they find out that they just relocated.
Sure.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about Willie's. So tell me, how do you market a construction company? It's very different than marketing some of the other things that you have worked on. Who are you targeting? How are you telling the story? What tools are you using? All those things.
So I would say 75% of my time is spent on writing proposals for new work. And I do that in tandem with our president and my direct supervisor, who is our the vice president of business development.
Yep.
So the first one that I worked on that was a win was for a $10.5 million project. Wow! So that was a good feeling that I was part of that.
For sure.
And then there've been much smaller ones, a handful that are under $1 million. So it just kind of ranges all over. Yeah. But primarily what I'm working on are those proposals. I am running our social media accounts, which we have Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And prior to this, I have literally no experience with Twitter, so that's been something new.
Yeah.
I've had to reach out to another prior guest of yours, John Feltz. I was like, John, how do I tweet?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's my favorite platform. So we had a conversation about that.
Yeah. Well, good.
So yeah, I'm running all their
So
social
if anyone
media.
has Twitter problems, reach out to John Feltz.
Call John.
Yes.
Don't call me.
Or me for that matter. Yeah. Yeah.
And what else am I doing? I'm doing some internal graphics and things. They don't really, we have some brochures and things, so we keep those updated, but we don't really have a lot of print materials. If we are targeting a new client or working with an existing client, we'll update them on things, but a lot of that is just face-to-face conversation. It's not really tangible materials to walk away with.
Yeah. So are most of the projects local to Northeast Indiana? Are they spread out all over the country? Where is the geographic focus?
Well, so the headquarters is in Fort Wayne, and then the next office is in Fishers, and then as of 2018, there's an office in Louisville as well.
Okay.
So kind of all over Indiana.
Yeah. Okay.
From top to bottom.
Yeah.
So, that's the main focus. There are some out-of-state projects, but not as often.
Yeah.
And typically that would only happen if we, Hagerman likes to say we have clients for life. So if someone, was the president of a company in Indiana and then moves to Texas and says, hey, I really liked working with you guys.
Yeah.
then we would consider that.
Sure.
So that's how some of those out-of-state projects happen.
Got it. Okay. So how much time are you spending now still learning, and how much time are you kind of capitalizing on what you've already learned? What's the tension there? Is it like 100% still learning, or is it, no, I'm pretty good and I feel like I can make some progress?
I would say I'm pretty good, but can make some progress because I came in with knowledge of writing proposals for the architecture, engineering, construction industry for my time at Design Collaborative. So that helped me be able to just kind of dive right in and get going. But there's definitely things, like I said, coming into an established team that you have to learn their ways and their processes. And construction proposals are different than design proposals in some ways. So there's definitely plenty to learn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's transition to the speed round of the show. We'll ask you 3 questions that are a lot like some of the things we've talked about, but also different, if that contradiction makes any sense. Let's start with career path. So you have been in a variety of industries. You've had some early challenges, as most of us do, getting started, but you've overcome that and you're doing really well. What have you learned in that? What's your best career advice if maybe someone who, was in the position you were in when you got out of college was trying to make it work? What would be your advice to that person, or anyone else for that matter, about making a successful career?
I think learning to be patient is very important because you'll get where you're meant to go, but you're not going to get there at 23. Some people do. Yeah. But not with a liberal arts degree. If you have an engineering degree, you'll probably jump right into what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Yeah. But if you are going into a creative industry, you're going to be looking at switching jobs a couple times probably, and taking the skills that you learn at one and transferring those to another, and then probably another. Yeah. So I think it's important to be patient and also to humble yourself and not to go in and think, I know everything because I came from this other job that taught me everything I need to know and I have all this experience. Like, you're still learn from who's around you. Yeah. Like, don't assume you know it all. Yeah. There's always so much to learn from anybody that you get to know, honestly.
Well, yeah, and I think in a new job, one of the hardest things to learn is the people, not even the industry. It's like, who am I going to be working with? How do they communicate? What do they want from me? And how do I work with them in a way that's going to be effective long term? Yeah.
The processes that I already had somewhere else may not work at, my next position.
For sure. Okay. That's good advice. Be patient. All right, I'm going to throw a random wild card new question at you that isn't part of the speed round of the show, but I forgot to ask it earlier. You do a lot of volunteer stuff.
I do.
Talk a little bit about the volunteer work you do and why you do it.
So right now, I am on the board of directors for Cancer Services of Northeast Indiana, Community Transportation Network, and I feel like I'm forgetting something.
Middle Waves.
I'm not on Middle Waves board anymore.
Okay, all right.
But I'm still involved with them.
All right.
I'm on the Middle Wave Sponsorship Committee. Previously was on the board.
Okay.
I am on the Amani Family Services Fund Development Committee.
Okay.
I know I said I was on the board for Cancer Services. I'm also the chair of their Ribbon Walk. I'm certain I'm forgetting something now.
Well, even if you aren't, that's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Why do you do that? It might sound like an obvious question, but everybody's motivated differently to do those things.
I know what I'm missing. Make-A-Wish of Northeast Indiana's Council. I'm on that.
All right. So you wished that you would remember what it was.
And then there it was.
Yeah, there it is.
I am unmarried and childless, so that contributes to some of it, that I do have the time to give. But I know a lot of people who do have families that give as often as I do. So I think it's just, I am someone who has always felt that if you can, you should, if it's helping other people. Yeah. And Hagerman also puts a huge emphasis on all of their employees being involved in the community and allowing them to do it on company time.
Nice.
Whether that's you volunteer one day a year or you're on a board or a committee. So that is something that really drew me to them.
Oh, yeah.
Because I told them when I interviewed, like, hey, I've already got all these things. And they're like, that's great. We love that.
Yeah.
So that's good, because I have gone other places that have been like, you're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah.
So I do it because, number one, I like to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, like I said, I just think it's really important to be able to give back to the things that matter to you.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, when kind of everything stopped and suddenly I had this blank calendar, that felt really crazy because I was used to go all day. Most evenings I had meetings, or, volunteer commitments, and then suddenly I had nothing. But then by, I don't know, maybe July of 2020, I kind of really embraced that free time and learned to be maybe a little more selective with what I chose moving forward.
Yep.
So I feel like the things that I'm connected to now either have some meaning to me or someone close to me, or there are things that I really think this community needs. Like Middle Waves is that example. Like, I think this community needs this cool music festival because we don't have something that big. So, I don't know. I think if you can, you should. Yeah.
Well, and I'm really glad to hear your employer appreciates that, because it's, it's relationships, and relationships help you get stuff done and get new work. So
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So the reason I shoehorned that question in at that particular time is because of the next question I'm going to ask you, which is part of the speed round of the show. I'd like you to tell me something that you wish people knew about an organization you're involved with. It could be Hagerman. It could be one of the organizations you volunteer for. And that could be, people know this, but it's underappreciated. I want to amplify it. Or there's a misconception that I want to debunk here on this podcast. What would you say is your answer? And you can pick multiple organizations if you want.
Well, I think the one that should be highlighted the most and isn't is Cancer Services.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because they are a local nonprofit that is available as a resource to both people experiencing cancer and their caregivers and families. So they're not just there to help you with medical knowledge. They're also there to, if you're sick and your spouse is super stressed from taking care of you, they can go there and do yoga and get a massage and just talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important because we do have excellent oncology physicians in Fort Wayne. We have a cancer institute here now, but we don't have some of those things that they offer in a medical office.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to get at. So I think it's really important for people to know that they're here. I feel like it's one of those things you don't know about until you're experiencing it. And that's good. It's good if you find it. But I think the more people realize that it existed here and that they offer you not only, some of those mental health and relaxation things that people need when they're experiencing an illness, but they'll help you get a hospital bed in your house. If you have had chemotherapy and lose your hair, they have a wig shop. And they do all those things at little to no cost.
Yeah.
So I just think that they are an organization that really should be amplified more, that more people need to know about, instead of learning about it when you're kind of experiencing one of the worst things you could experience.
Yeah. No, that's great. So good people of this podcast, go learn more about Cancer Services and what they do. Okay, last speed round question. What is one tip, trick, tool, hack, whatever you want to call it, that you use in your work, or it could even be beyond your work, that you think people should know about? And it could be something that is analog. It could be something that's digital. It could be a combination of things. The world is your oyster. What say you?
So something that I use when I am creating a new piece of digital marketing is a website called Creative Market. And a friend of mine who is a graphic designer taught me about it. So I figured if she uses it, of course I can. Yeah. So really what it is you get on and they have templates for anything. You can search discount flyer. You can search pamphlet. You can search nonprofit fundraising, all kinds of things. And then they will show you all the examples that people who contribute their I mean, it's kind of like Pinterest in a way, but
is it like
much
Canva
better.
at all? Is it?
No, you're not creating on
Okay.
there. You can purchase the templates.
Okay.
But I use it as a way to just kind of get inspiration for things that I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I have to create this thing. Where do I start? And so I'll get on there and just kind of look for things that I find aesthetically pleasing, and then do my best to kind of recreate them. And certainly not exactly as they are, but just kind of, I like that layout. Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Well, and I would assume part of that is because you have some responsibilities toward graphic design, but you're not a graphic designer.
Oh, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
There is no graphic designer.
Yeah.
Well, there is in Fishers, but not here.
Yeah. I was in that position. My first job ever, I went to this will date me pretty quickly, a PageMaker 6.5 class.
Oh, PageMaker.
Yes. And then I was like, I don't know how to do this. I still don't. And drew a lot of inspiration from other sources. So I wish that tool had been around then.
I feel like maybe I made the yearbook in high school on PageMaker.
Okay.
I kind of forgot that existed until you just said it.
Well, you just made me feel even older. So. Yeah.
Well, then that makes me old too if I used it.
Well, just barely. You were in high school. Yeah. Well, Kourtney, thank you so much. This has been fun. It's been great hearing a little bit more about your story and the organizations you're connected to. And thanks to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next week with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.